Hello everyone, welcome. I have a longer video for you today because I'm going to be creating cards with all of the club kits that Spellbinders has sent me for February. So like always, I'm going to show you the club kits I have here, and then we'll get into the projects. Starting off with the Stencil of the Month Club. This one is a very good value. It's called Spring Stencil Backgrounds. And you get 4 different stencils. So here's the first one. And then the second one, they're all floral themed. Look how pretty that one is. This pink panel is 5.5 by 4.25, which is a standard A2 sized card. And then here is the fourth one. And I think this one is my favorite. It's the one I'm going to be using to create a card with in today's video. But look at those pretty daisies. I love that one. Next is the 3D embossing folder of the month. This is Easter themed and it's called Easter Egg Hunt. I'll put the panel behind that again. Maybe you can see it a little bit better. It seems like the embossing folders are kind of hard to see on camera. You have all of these beautiful Easter eggs with bows and little florals. And then next, let me show you the Glimmer of the Month Club. I'm having so much fun with this club. It's called Daffodil Spray. You get this gorgeous plate with daffodils on it, 3 different daffodils. And then you get 2 sentiments, and they say, "Sending Easter blessings," and "You brighten my day." I love it when they include the die cuts for the sentiments. Makes it so much easier. Let's set this aside and look at my favorite club for February. This one is the Clear Stamp and Die of the Month Club. And this one is called Lily Arch. So you have a beautiful cluster of lilies and buds, and then several different sentiments. And then you can cut out this arch stamp with the coordinating die, and it cuts the whole piece out. And you'll see later how beautiful that is once you cut it out. And then you get lots of different sentiments and the dies to cut all of those out. So if you just subscribe to the Stamp of the Month Club, I would highly suggest getting the dies to go with it this month. And then last, I get the Better Press of the Month Club. This month is called Flutter into Spring. So you get a cluster of flowers, 2 sentiments, and a hummingbird. And this extra hummingbird set called Fluttering Hummingbird, you get if you subscribe to the Caboodle kit, which is all of the kits. For card number 1, I'm going to be using the Daffodil Spray Glimmer Plate Club. This club also comes with foil. This foil I got is called Champagne. So I have my system all ready to go. I pressed the timer button, and while that is doing its thing, I'm going to prep the sentiments to foil. I like to tape them down with yellow tape so they don't shift around at all. And I'm taping them onto a piece of really light yellow cardstock from Spellbinders. This yellow cardstock is called Chamomile. So I'll pull out the hot plate. Sometimes I have a hard time pulling that out. Let me know if any of you have similar experiences with your foiling system. I ran it through my Platinum 6 machine. And then I'm going to pull this over onto the silicone mat so that it can cool. And I can start glimmering the 2 sentiments. I like to keep a sheet of paper in between my 2 plates. It's just a thin sheet of paper, but it works really nicely as a shim. And all of my images glimmer up beautifully with this. My timer light wasn't working, so I'm going to try and redock it, and then it works perfectly. I'll peel off the tape with my all-in-one tool. I'm just going kind of slow so that I don't rip my cardstock. And the glimmering looks really pretty on this dark blue cardstock. It's called Indigo from Spellbinders. Let's peel off the foil. I love how thick the lines are. It's so pretty. You don't even have to color it in if you don't want to, but I'm going to pull out my colored pencils to do this. Here are the sentiments. They also look very beautiful on this yellow cardstock. And then I'll use the coordinating dies to cut those out. And I have 2 sentiments ready to go. I chose a few colored pencils to use on this panel. I'm going to color it in very simply. I have 1 green, and I'm going to color all of the greenery in with this. I'm using a medium pressure on this paper. I want it to show up, but yet I don't want to burnish or flatten the paper. I'm being kind of careful to color in between the foil lines. If I do happen to go over the foiling, it doesn't hurt it, but I don't want to accidentally scratch any of it off. I'll jump ahead, and I have colored most of this in at this point, but I just wanted to show you how I color in the daffodils. I have an orange colored pencil that I use on the leaves surrounding the center. And again, I'm just going carefully and not hurting my hand by pressing too hard. You can do more than 1 layer if you need to get the color to show up on this dark cardstock. I really love the look of colored pencils on dark cardstocks. Similar to when you ink blend over your foiled panels, the glimmered lines kind of resists the colored pencils. So your colored pencils won't color over the foiled lines. But again, you could scratch it, so I'm just being a little bit careful. For the centers of the daffodils, I'm going to use a yellow colored pencil. This shows up beautifully on this blue cardstock. I'm using my Prismacolor colored pencils for this. These are such fun, creamy pencils. But of course, use whatever colored pencils you have on hand. And it's just fun experimenting with them and see how they show up on the darker cardstocks. I was going to use a light blue panel of cardstock, but I wanted to see how it looked on this dark indigo cardstock. And I just love how this card turns out. I'm almost done with my coloring. And then I'm going to show you a close-up look at this beautiful panel. The plate completely covers an A2 sized panel. And it even cuts it off just a little bit at the top and the bottom. If you wanted to do a 5x7 card, you would be able to see this whole image on that size of card. Here it is. I'll kind of hold it in the light so you can get a good look at it. It's just such a fun technique to do. All that's left is to attach this to my card base. I'm using a top folding card base. And then I'm going to attach my sentiment, but I'm going to pop this up with some foam. And I used the light yellow chamomile cardstock for this so that you can really see the sentiment. The background's a little harder to see. And then I'm going to attach a few gold baubles around this panel. These have adhesive on the backs already, so I just need to peel them off the acetate and attach them to the cardstock using my all-in-one tool again. Now that it's done, let me give you a close-up look. So it's kind of a different looking springtime card, but it was really fun to try out spring images and lighter colors on this dark blue cardstock. Now on to card number 2. Card number 2 is also my favorite card out of this set that I'm creating today. I love this stamp set and the dies that cut it out. It is so beautiful. Again, this one's my favorite for the month. I'm going to peel off the large lily stamp very carefully. I'm going to stamp it onto a piece of pink sand cardstock. doesn't matter if I have this perfectly centered because I am going to cut it out, but I'm going to ink it up with some black VersaFine ink. Make sure it's snugged up into the corner of my mini MISTI so that I can stamp it out several times, which I do, but I'm only going to show one stamping in this video. I remember to keep the stamp on the door of my mini MISTI because once I'm done with my colored pencil work, I like to restamp it to freshen up the lines. I'm just going to push my mini MISTI aside for a minute and start in on the coloring, starting with the centers of the flowers so that I don't accidentally color in the green stamen with pinks. As you can see, I have my pinks already selected there at the left side. I have a dark, a medium, and a light. And then I have 2 greens to use for the greenery. And then a yellow for the little dots on the stamen. So I'm going to start with the darkest pink first. I'm using a pink and not a red because I don't want these to look red. Sometimes that can happen when I color with red colored pencils to add shadows to pinks. So I found a colored pencil that is truly a pink, dark pink. And I'm putting my shadows down at the base of my petals. I'll use my medium color next to draw out this color and to create a smooth transition between these 2 pencils. And again, I'm not pressing hard because I don't want to hurt my hand, but I can work in layers. So if I need it to be darker, I'm just going to simply add more layers. And then this is my highlight pencil, this light pink one. I apply this where the flower kind of raises up or bubbles up in the middle. This will make it look like it's curving. So I'll put dark color at the tip of the petal. And again, well, here I'm going over the dark once again at the base of the petal. And then I have my medium toned pencil. And then I'm going to reinforce the highlight or the place on the petal that curves upward with the lightest pink pencil. And I go over it several times, but you can make this as easy as you'd like. I'm going to add a little more shading to the right side of this petal, just to kind of push back the petal with this darker color, or at least push back the edge of the petal. And I'm going to do that to all of the flowers. I won't show you all of the coloring because it will take too long for this already very long video. By the time I finish the coloring, the panel is kind of burnished. It won't allow me to add any more colors or layers of colored pencil on top. But I get that burnished look just by adding lots of layers until the paper won't accept any more. And then for the bud, I'm adding a dark green at the bottom, a light green in the middle, and my medium toned pencil up at the top. And here it is, all done. Now I can put this back in the mini MISTI. This can be kind of scary because you really don't want to mess up your coloring at this point, but I'm just making sure to snug it into the corner. I'll ink it up with more of the VersaFine Onyx Black ink, and I'll stamp it out again and freshen up those lines. The colored pencil work can kind of obscure your lines, so I really like this step. I think it's an important step to do. I'll allow the ink to dry just a little bit. I should have allowed it to dry longer, but I was very careful at placing the die on top and taping it down with some yellow tape. I'll run it through my Platinum 6, and then here it is all cut out, and then the center bits just kind of fall out. So pretty. And just gently pull off the negative space or negative bits to this. And this panel is ready to go. I'm going to attach this to a piece of wild berry cardstock, and I want this cardstock to be a little bit smaller than my white card base. I want to have a white matting around this. Let's put this aside for just a minute and work on the sentiment. I have to, of course, use one of these cute curved sentiments. I'll stamp that out onto a piece of white cardstock. Ink it up one more time for good measure. And then I will use the coordinating die to cut this out. And this is going to curve right over the arch of flowers. Let me find the right die cut. And I'll tape that in place and cut that out off camera. I'll attach the wild berry cardstock to my card base. And this wild berry cardstock looks so pretty with the dark pinks in the flowers. I'll pop up my lilies with some foam squares and center that on this card. And then for the sentiment, I'll use a foam strip. Pop this up. I can just trim that off with my scissors. I'll put the rest of that back on the plastic sheet for another project, and then I can attach the sentiment. I decided to use the sentiment that says Spring Greetings because it's a little bit longer than the Happy Easter sentiment, but of course this would make a beautiful Easter card. I'll use a few enamel dots around this panel. It is all done. Let me give you a close-up look. You can see the sheen of the colored pencils where it kind of burnished into the paper with all of those layers. I didn't need to use any kind of lacquer or glitter for this card. I thought it was just beautiful as is. For my next card, I'm going to use the 3D embossing folder of the month. And again, this is called Easter Egg Hunt. But I'm going to start off by creating my own stencil. This will make coloring in these Easter eggs really fast and easy. So I stamped it out onto a piece of 100-pound white cardstock. Then I'm gently using my scissors to cut around one of the Easter eggs. You could, of course, just leave this as a white panel and it would look beautiful. But whenever I see Easter eggs, I just have to color them in. So let's snip away this Easter egg. And then I will emboss another panel. This time I'm going to take the time to use a baby wipe on the front and the back so that the paper doesn't crack. This is a piece of Spellbinders watercolor cardstock I'm using. It's nice and heavyweight. Here is the panel ready to go. I'm going to choose some beautiful pastel inks to use on this panel. And I'm going to be using some stencil brushes as well. So let's start off with the pink. I accidentally used or picked up the purple brush for this one. It does discolor the pink a little bit, but it still looks pretty. And then the eggs will just pop right through the hole, which makes it very easy to stencil. The edges of the stencil are going to get a bit grunged up, but it still works just fine. So I'll color in the rest of the pink eggs, and I will speed this up just a little bit. And then I can move on to the other colors. You could, of course, just color them in with some alcohol markers or zig markers, whatever you'd like. I just thought this made it extra fast and easy. And now for the purple. If I had planned ahead a little bit, I think I would have started with the lightest color first. I was a little bit worried about getting these pinks and purples into the yellow ink or onto the yellow Easter eggs through the stencil, but it turned out just fine. It didn't transfer any of the pinks or purples into the yellow. So depending on the paper that you're using and the inks, You may want to consider using the lightest color first and working on from there. Just a few more eggs left to color in. I think I'll go back and use the pink ink for another of the eggs. And then don't forget to get the eggs at the sides. And then this panel is done. Inking over the decorations on the eggs made the edges that were standing up higher on the eggs look darker. So that was just kind of a fun little bonus. I used my notched edge dies to cut out two panels. One of them is the Easter egg panel, and then I cut out another piece of yellow cardstock to mat that. I'm gluing a piece of fruit punch cardstock onto the card base, and then I can glue down the other two panels. These are all just going to go down flat with some liquid glue. The yellow is a piece of beeswax yellow cardstock. Now for my embossed panel. Center that in the yellow. And then I wanted to add a bow to this card, and I'm using a piece of embroidery floss for this. Glue that down. And then the sentiment, I'm going to glue down flat as well. If you'll remember, this one came from the Glimmer Club. It says, "Sending Easter blessings." It provides just a little bit of sparkle for this card. I wanted to show you another card I created with this 3D embossing folder. I used the same stencil that I created, but I also inked the embossing folder so that the background would be a light blue. And now it's time to create a card using this beautiful daisy stencil. I'm going to stencil it onto a piece of very pale blue cardstock. This one is called Glacier, and I'm using some snowfall grit paste. I like this grit paste because it's very chunky and sparkly. I'm just very carefully spreading it out with the Simon Hurley tool. Forget what this is called. But it's amazing how much dimension this gives you. And then once I'm done spreading it out smoothly, I can scrape off the excess with the palette knife and put it back in the bottle. Right away, I'm going to pull out some baby wipes and clean off my tools. It's nice to use baby wipes because if you don't have a sink nearby, this does a perfect job. I'll clean off the scraper tool as well as the palette knife this way. Then I can just set these aside. Now I'm going to pull up the stencil very gently, and we'll see how this turned out. I am going to clean off the stencil right away as well. But I let this dry for a couple of hours. And here it is all done, but look at the chunkiness of that grit paste. I just love it. So now that it's dry, I'm going to add a little bit of ink over the paste. Using a stencil brush and some yellow ink. I haven't played with my grit paste for a really long time, so I was just having fun experimenting and seeing what different techniques I could do with this. So I'm coloring in the centers of these flowers with the yellow. I'm being careful just to put it on the grit paste. It stands up high enough that it was pretty easy to just get ink on the grit paste and not the paper. Now I'm going to go over the flowers with some pink ink and another stencil brush. I'm just carefully gliding the brush over the paste. I'm going to jump ahead here, and I'll show you how this turned out. This was just a fun technique to do. But here it is almost done. Let me give you a close-up look. It still looks glittery. It's so pretty. Okay, so let's put another springtime card together. I'm using more of the Fruit Punch cardstock. I cut out an arch in the middle of this, and I'll use liquid glue to attach this to the embossed panel. I'm also bringing in an older set of dies just to use their florals. This is called Envelope of Wonder. It has some beautiful flowers. I went ahead and die cut the flowers as well as the centers, and I wanted to add some grit paste to the centers of the flowers. So I taped them down with some yellow tape. I'm just going to gently brush over some grit paste so they look sparkly as well. These didn't take very long to dry, but I am going to set them aside. And we can attach this panel onto the white card base. I cut out all of my flowers using more of the Fruit Punch cardstock. I didn't want to introduce too many new colors to this. 2 of them I'm going to glue down flat, just in the corner of this card. And then to attach the 3rd flower, I'm going to use a foam square. I cut out a bunch of leaves using fern cardstock. And this will help differentiate the 3 flowers so they don't look like a big blob the side of the card. Glue all of the leaves down flat. And the centers, again, it didn't take very long for them to dry, and I'll just glue all of those down flat. The sentiment comes from the Clear Stamp and Die Club. I'm using the one that says Spring Greetings again. This could be used, of course, for an Easter card if you wanted. You could stamp Happy Easter inside the card. I think that would be really cute. Added a few gems, and here's a close-up look at the finished card. Just love the look of that chunky grit paste. Now I'm going to have to go back sometime and use the other 3 stencils. And now on to the last card. So again, this one is called Fluttering into Spring, and I'm inking it up with some pink ink. This one is called Azalea. I'm using their porcelain cardstock. I ran it through my Platinum 6, and here it is. Isn't that beautiful? Looks like a Hawaiian flower to me. I'm going to press some more flowers into this same panel, so that's why I'm working off the side here. I have my panel already taped to the door of the Better Press. And it's nice that this platform is large enough that you can move things around like this. I'm going to do this one more time just up at the top. Here it is all ready to go. I just wanted my flowers to be kind of at the left of this panel. I'm not going to be coloring in the pink flowers. However, I'll show you what I'm going to do. So I'll attach my panel onto a piece of black cardstock. I already stamped out the sentiment, one of the 2 that came in this set. It says, sending you a fluttering hello. And then I stamped out the panel again with black ink and colored it in with some pink Prismacolor pencils. These pink match the ink that I stamped out the first panel with. And I also stamped out the bird with some black ink and colored that in with more colored pencils. I popped up the circle as well as the hummingbird. Now I can attach this to my white card base. This is kind of like spotlight coloring. If you don't want to color in the whole thing, just choose a portion of it to color in. And here's a close-up look. I also added some clear enamel dots. They look like little water droplets on the flowers. I really love the look of those. Thanks for spending some of your time with me today. This was rather a long video. Thanks for hanging in there till the end. I'll have all of the links to the products listed in the description box below. I hope you're all having a lot of fun with your club kits this month. Until next time, happy crafting. Bye.